Hey everyone! Today we're jumping right into a really fascinating proposal in the Bitcoin world called BIP 110. Now, I know it sounds technical, but this isn't just about code. It's actually about a fundamental debate over what Bitcoin even is. Is it supposed to be pure digital gold, or is it more of a decentralized hard drive for the whole world? This one proposal is forcing the entire community to really think about that, and maybe even choose a side.
So here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll talk about the data dilemma that got this whole conversation started. Then we'll introduce BIP 110 itself and get into the nitty-gritty of how its limits would actually work. We'll also look at the trade-offs, because there are always trade-offs. Check out the timeline for activation, and then wrap up by facing that big question. What is Bitcoin's ultimate purpose?
Okay, so let's start with Bitcoin's data dilemma. And really, you could call this a battle for Bitcoin's soul, because it makes us ask what this whole thing is actually for.
And that battle, it pretty much boils down to this one question. Is Bitcoin's main job to be the best, most sound money the world has ever seen? Or is it supposed to be a decentralized, censorship-resistant hard drive where you can store pretty much anything you can think of? For a while, these two ideas could coexist. But now, well, they're really starting to clash.
Now, this isn't a brand new debate, but it really caught fire back in 2022 with the rise of so-called inscriptions. This was a new technique that let people embed huge amounts of totally random data. We're talking pictures, text, you name it, right into Bitcoin transactions. And that created a whole new set of problems for the network. So what were the consequences of all this? Well, think about the Bitcoin blockchain like it's a super secure highway built just for armored trucks carrying money. Inscriptions are kind of like these massive, slow-moving parade floats that suddenly showed up and clogged all the lanes. This puts a huge strain on the people running nodes because they have to store all this extra data. It also drives up transaction fees for you, me, and everyone else just trying to send money. And it creates this intense competition for space that, kind of distracts from the main mission. And that brings us to a quote that really perfectly sums up the thinking behind BIP 110. Bitcoin should do one thing and do it well. The whole argument is that this one thing is to be the best money possible. Anything that gets in the way of that mission, well, it's a problem that maybe needs a solution. So in response to this whole dilemma, a potential solution was put on the table. BIP 110. So what is it in a nutshell? BIP 110 is a proposal for what's called a soft fork. That's just a type of network upgrade that's backward compatible. And its job would be to temporarily limit how much of this arbitrary data you can stuff into a transaction. The two really important words there are temporarily and refocus. The goal here is super specific. It's designed to be a temporary shield, just for 1 year. It directly targets the large-scale data storage that's causing all the issues, but it's been carefully designed to leave all the known monetary uses of Bitcoin completely untouched. The big idea is to send a clear message that Bitcoin's #1 priority is and should be sound money. Okay, so that covers the what and the why. But how would these limits actually work in practice? Let's take a look at the specific new rules of the road that BIP 110 would bring in. This table lays it all out. Now, without getting totally lost in the technical weeds, what it does is set some simple, pretty clear limits on the size of certain parts of a transaction, the parts that are being used for all this data storage. For example, it caps how big new transaction outputs can be and limits data pushes to 256 bytes. These are really targeted restrictions meant to stop the data bloat while leaving your normal, everyday monetary transactions alone. And that leads us to probably the most important question you might have. How does any of this affect the Bitcoin you already own? And the answer is simple. It doesn't. Any chunk of Bitcoin, the technical term is a UTXO, that was created before BIP 110 would activate is permanently exempt from all these new rules. Your funds are essentially grandfathered in. There's no deadline, no rush to move your coins. They can be spent exactly as they always have been. Your existing funds are safe, period. But of course, no change like this comes for free. Any upgrade to the network is going to have some potential downsides. So let's get real and take an honest look at the trade-offs involved here. So on one side, yeah, some things would be put on pause for that 1 year period. This includes some really experimental stuff like advanced smart contracts such as BitVM, and also a few complex wallet features. But on the other hand, the core functions are completely fine. All known monetary uses, the entire Lightning Network, and I'll say it again, all of your existing funds are totally unaffected.
So let's say the community decides this is the right way to go. What would the rollout actually look like? Let's check out the proposed path to activation.
The timeline they've laid out is very clear. It would all kick off with miners signaling their support in late 2025. If enough agree, that leads to a lock-in period around August 2026, with the actual activation happening 2 weeks after that. And maybe the most important date on this whole timeline is the last one, expiry. About 1 year after it turns on, all of the restrictions automatically disappear. It's a temporary fix with a built-in off switch.
And, all of this, the technical details, the heated debates, the timelines, it brings us right back to where we started, that big philosophical question at the very heart of Bitcoin. At the end of the day, a proposal like BIP 110 is so much more than just a change to the code. What it really does is force a conversation. It makes everyone, developers, users, miners, investors, to seriously confront these deep questions about what Bitcoin's core identity is and where it should be headed in the future. And that leaves us with this final thought to chew on. Should a protocol like Bitcoin have a chosen, focused path, to be the absolute best money possible? Or should it be more like a neutral, blank canvas, totally open to any and all kinds of innovation, no matter what the consequences might be? The whole debate over BIP 110 is really just the community trying to figure out the answer to that very question.